Welcome to the weather forecast on the CIA TV channel. Dear friends, in today's forecast, we'll break down what you need to know about the weather that will affect the United States over the next 7 days. A major change in the weather pattern is coming to the United States over the next few days, bringing with it the potential for more severe weather, including damaging winds, large hail, and isolated tornadoes. Additionally, major flooding will continue to be a concern over the weekend. And we'll start with what's happening across the country today. We've got a flash flood emergency in Davenport, Iowa. We had 2 reports of tornadoes yesterday, one of which actually happened in northeastern Colorado and another in southwest Iowa. However, we did have a radar-confirmed tornado just outside of Davenport, Iowa, and we may have had a tornado briefly in Wisconsin, and we may have had a tornado briefly in western Missouri. So overall, not a tornado outbreak, but we did see a few tornadoes eventually. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the weather pattern that's going to impact the United States over the next 7 days. Here's what's going on across the United States right now. We have a trough that's sitting over the upper Midwest, and then a ridge of high pressure that's building back up in the southwest, which is helping to facilitate a northwesterly flow, which could actually produce some thunderstorms over the next few days. But really, over the next few days, we're expecting the low pressure system that caused yesterday's severe weather to bring a little more severe weather today. By tomorrow, this low will be moving out of the United States, and we'll see at least a little bit more calm weather for the Midwest and Ohio Valley on Sunday and Monday. But by early to mid next week, we're really dealing with a very different type of weather. It's a very strong zonal jet stream. That basically means we won't see any major storm systems, I think, for the first couple of days of next week. But we do think we'll see some improvement around Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, as we could have a shortwave trough or 2 moving across the northern plains and Midwest, and that could be our next chance for some severe weather, at least significant, including damaging winds, hail, and the potential for tornadoes. And then finally, by Saturday and Sunday of next week, things are going to get a little more uncertain, but long term, the GFS model is suggesting a large ridge of high pressure will form across the southern 45 states, mainly south of Kansas, and then further north, we may have a few shortwave troughs, at least bringing some isolated or scattered severe weather threats for those staying in the northern and central plains, Midwest, and possibly the Ohio Valley. But it looks like a large ridge will form across the lower 48 states over the next few weeks, which will help prevent a lot of significant severe weather, mainly in southern Nebraska. Now let's talk a little bit more about the severe weather potential over the next few days. Let's start with today. We have a slight risk of severe weather in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky, and a marginal major threat extending from Wisconsin back into the high plains and into the mid-Atlantic. The biggest concern across the board is going to be strong winds and some large hail. There could be some occasional lightning from some of the storms that develop later today. We have 2 marginal minor threats for severe weather, one in the southern plains, one in the northeast. I actually think tomorrow could be interesting back in the southern plains. There could be a remnant mesoscale convective vortex, one that could cause significant flooding, and then the 2 vortices that could actually produce a few tornadoes. But right now, the Hurricane Center only has a wind warning, no hail and no tornado risk. But again, I think there could be an isolated tornado or 2 in the southern plains. And on Monday, this is one of the smallest severe weather days we've had in a long time. Right now, we have a marginal threat in the northern plains. However, I think there's a chance that the Hurricane Center will add a marginal threat, maybe even a small risk in the future severe weather forecasts, to return to some of the southern plains, depending on whether there's a residual mesoscale convection. It really depends on what happens over the next 24 hours. But this is another area that I'll be watching closely on Monday for hail, winds, and maybe a few tornadoes as well. Let's Let's take a day-by-day look at when severe weather is likely to occur, including what's coming this weekend. We'll start with what's happening today. We're expecting a couple of storms to develop just before lunchtime today in northern Michigan, potentially bringing isolated tornado risks and damaging winds around 3 to 4 p.m. This afternoon, a couple more storms will move mostly through Indiana and back into Kentucky. We'll have a line of storms developing with damaging winds, some hail, and possibly a low risk of tornadoes. But I think the low pressure will stay very low and the tornado risk will be very short-lived. By 7 to 8 p.m., the storms will move towards Cincinnati and Dayton, where they'll likely break up and the risk of damaging winds will be significantly reduced by that time. And then in the nighttime hours through Sunday, things look pretty quiet. There could be a few more unexpected storms coming in on Sunday afternoon. The Southern Plains is one of the areas that I'm a little more concerned about over the next 48 hours, mainly because there are a lot of storms here, and we could see some stationary storms, which could lead to more severe flooding. So today, we're expecting some scattered storms, mostly across Oklahoma. We'll be looking at some strong winds, some scattered hail, maybe a brief tornado, but the flash flooding is really reminiscent of all the rain that we're going to see and how stationary it really is here across the Southern Plains today. By tomorrow morning, there's still going to be some rain, especially across Texas. There's a flood warning in effect for parts of northern Texas for the next 48 hours. And then tomorrow, more rain is expected, and we could see some localized flooding, particularly in North Texas. Current rainfall estimates from the HRR model suggest that we could have a large area in both Oklahoma and North Texas with 2.5 to 10 inches of rain. Localized areas could see 10 to 25 inches of rain over the next 48 hours. And as we head into Sunday, I'll be watching Oklahoma, Arkansas, and even back into North Texas for additional rain and possibly a remnant mid-scale convection vortex that could bring some localized severe weather risks to Oklahoma and western Arkansas on Sunday. And then on Monday, it could be the same thing in southwest Missouri, eastern Oklahoma, and western Arkansas, with some localized severe weather risk ongoing. But obviously, flash flooding is a big concern because these storms are slow moving. And unfortunately, I can't really rule out another major flood event somewhere in the Southern Plains over the next couple of days because of these slow moving storms. Then Florida will continue to be active over the next 7 days with widespread rainfall in the 3 to 6 inches range. And after this weekend, we're looking at a little bit of a easing off of severe weather potential, I think, early next week. But I think by Wednesday, we could see a shortwave trough erupting over the Rocky Mountains. That could bring at least some localized or scattered severe weather back into the Central Plains and back into the Midwest. But don't expect anything too major right now. And then by Thursday and Friday, we're looking at the same exact area for at least some localized or scattered severe weather. I do think Wednesday through Friday is the time frame to watch for some sort of shortwave trough that could bring some more significant localized severe weather. And then the next 7 days, at least for now, will be a little below average across the Great Plains, but we expect some warmer weather as we head into the work week. We expect a much warmer pattern to emerge across the Central Plains back into the Northeast, with below average temperatures returning to the Northern Plains, as our trough and jet stream will form far to the north. That will allow for at least some cooler temperatures across the Northern Plains by midweek, and by the end of the work week, that warm weather will continue. We could even see some record highs return to the Midwest and Central Plains by the end of the week. And then next week, things are going to be a little more uncertain. But it looks like it's going to be warm for the next 7 to 10 days, especially if you're in the Great Plains. But obviously right now, temperatures are a little below average. We will continuously update the storm situation in the next news. Please subscribe to the channel to follow. Thank you for watching the news on CIA TV channel.